All right, Shalom, family. Welcome back. All right, so I told you all yesterday that I was reading out of one of the books that focused on the Jewish people and how they think. So I'm gonna pull a couple of pages, not a couple, it's just one actually, one page, and I'm gonna read the one page out of that book where they actually expose, well, the writer, let me say this, the writer, and this book was written back in the 60s. So it just goes to show that they've known and or understood for a very long time, as they reference in the book they use the title Negro, okay? But they understand and they know that the Negro has relevance to being from the tribe of Judah or being the Jews. Now, he didn't outright say it in the book, but I can point out to you in the book how he understand and or he knew it the way he phrased it. So it was as if he's using this dog whistle terminology in the book. Okay. And also just looking at, the point of just the Israeli deception, that's running rampant worldwide, but they're being exposed, more and more for just being liars, right? Um, they deny everything. And one thing about this book, and the book is called, thank you all for coming into the live. And the book is called The Jewish Mystique, and it's by Erwin Haig. Okay, so that's the book that I'm gonna read. The one page. It's only one page that I want to get into, but in the book, if you're reading it, you can really see the diabolical thought process, of this person tied to these people because he's speaking within representation, of the people as a whole. So in the book, he talks about, their ability to go into different industries and have control over the industries, which if you say that today, the Jewish community, they like deny they have control over anything. They just deny everything. They deny control over banking industry, music industry. I mean, if you try to say that they're controlling and or manipulating, they just deny, they lie, they just lie. But in the book, he speaks openly or boasting, in a sense or way as to this control that they have. So not going to be on here long. I don't think so anyway, because I'm only planning to read from, one page out of the book. And then, as I'm reading, I'll kind of break down and give my insight based on what I see as it pertains to, the different lines as we're going across or going through that one page. One other thing I wanted to point out is there was a time when you could go on the internet and you could pull up the Rojets Thesaurus or the Rojets International Thesaurus from 1834. And it would pop up and it would show where in the Rojets Thesaurus of 1834 that the term Negro was synonymous with the image of God. It's not that readily available right now. In fact, when I went to go do a search for it today, this is what it said. And I think it's funny because the Israeli and or the Jewish community, they've already broadcast that they're sweeping the internet and that they have different organizations and or groups to go in and fix different things within the internet that they like don't really want to, be publicized or whatever. But they'll deny that too, even though they said it already. But here's what the internet says today. Now, mind you, I have the Roget's International Thesaurus from 1834, and I see where it says Negro, the image of God. I have it. But this is how they fixed the internet. So if I'm telling you right now today, if I'm telling you, hey, go and Google Roget's Thesaurus 1834, Negro image of God, and you'll see where it says they fixed it to now, it's a little more difficult for you to find it, but this is what they put out to discourage, anyone that's looking for it. Or if I'm telling you this, the first thing that pop up, you'll be like, oh, he lying. He don't know what he's talking about. But again, I have the Roget's Thesaurus 1834, where it explains Negro, synonymous with the image of God. But this is what the internet says here today. As I put in, let me see, what did I put in? I put in Roget's Thesaurus 1834, Negro is synonymous with the image of God. And this is what came back. Based on a search of available historical and digitized editions of Roget's Thesaurus. Now, mind you, at one time, it was truly available. It said, there is no evidence. There is no evidence. Now, mind you, a few months ago, maybe even a year ago, it was available. But now there's no evidence. Okay? That there's no evidence that Negro was listed as a synonym for image of God in the original 1834 or 1852 versions. Now, I'm just telling you, this is how they're manipulating even on the internet. Okay? I'm telling you, this ain't no Mandela effect. I saw it years ago, and then I got the book. Only because I thought something like this might transpire. Now they're saying there's no evidence. Okay, so the book that I'm going to read from anyone today, thank you all for coming into the live. But the book that I'm going to read from today, just one page, I only want that one page, just to show the deception within the Israelis and, how they deny the fact that they're converts, either through Maccabees or Hyrcanus at some point in period in time. There were people that converted upon the heritage of the Judeans, realizing even at that time that kingdom was split. It didn't encompass the entire kingdom at that point, but based on the Judeans. There were different nationalities that converted into, the Judean heritage. Not dealing with religion, but understanding their way of life and practicing according to the laws that they live by, not religion. Today, you all talk about religion, but Folks didn't deal with religion. Folks were under their heritage and their way of life, living according to their laws, their customs, and their traditions. Religion is a modern concept, and Christianity is a modern concept, and this Judaism is a modern concept with respect. It has nothing to do with the original heritage of the people. Talking about the encompass, or talking about the children of Israel and or the Israelites or the kingdom of Israel as a whole. Now they've tried to section it off and just make it be about, Judah, but it's not just about Judah. It's about the entire kingdom of Israel. And you got to look at this. They call themselves the state of Israel. The book talks about the kingdom of Israel. They call themselves Israeli. The book talks about the Israelites. These are just subtle differences to point out the deception. But then the Israelis and the Jewish community, and how when you speak about the history of the Khazars, they deny that. They try to separate themselves as if they don't come from Europe, that they weren't converted, that their history is based on a conversion, and that they're not the original people. I always go back to what the president of Egypt said when they came into the land. It was like, oh my, OMG. They left such a dark complected people, and whew, they've come back so pale. What happened? What type of scientific anomaly is this? So I'm going to read, just one page, from this book, and then I'm going to be up off of here. But yesterday, when I was illustrating within my discussion, talking about the Bible, I said that I had been reading this book and I was going to come back and I was going to read from. So that's what I'm going to do. Right now, if you all will bear with me as we look to focus on, the deception of the Israelis, Israeli deception, and how they just lie. But there's some things that are recorded that they just can't get away from, and they don't, outright say certain things. I mean, they're also talking in code and using that dog whistle terminology. Thank you all for coming into the live. I'm going to say this. You can tap the screen. It don't cost anything. That's just one way to show, your support for the live. You can repost the live and you can share the live. Thank you all for coming, into the live. So the book that I'm going to read from, and the one page that I'm going to read, the book is entitled The Jewish Mystique. Okay. Ernest Haig is the author of this book. And the point for me reading this one page is to show, as they draw comparisons to the Jewish people and the Negro. And then he slip up and he tell you that the Negro is that Jew. He slips up and he tells you that. And I'm going to show you how it's a slip. Because you don't just come outright and say it. But for those that have ears to hear, and for those that have the ability to understand, you'll see what's being talked about. Okay? So I'm going to go to page 59. I'm going to read page 59, the bottom of page 59, and then I'm going to go into page 60. That's where you'll find it in the book. And periodically, I have to reannounce what book, I'm reading from so that people can keep up and be able to find it if they want to go get it and see it, for themselves. But ultimately, it just shows the arrogance, of this people and how today they deny all things, but they're just liars. And they have no problem with being liars. That's just a part of who they are. Okay. So let's go into it. So here, as I get off, it says on page 59, and then we'll go into page 60. He says, unlike Negroes, the Jews could fall back on their past history, recorded in the Bible, and universally respected and accepted. So I'll say with that, see, they understand the significance of a Bible being respected and accepted. And they used that book to validate them as being a people. And this is what's hard for me to get my people to understand as they run around continuing to create and make up these misnomers from being black to colored to Negro to African American to FBA to indigenous Aboriginal, whatever. These misnomers, they do not have any substantive finding within historical annals. But when you come to the heritage and or a nationality of a people, you can find it within the Bible. The Europeans understand this. They know it, and they used it to their advantage while they have you fighting and arguing over the prominence of the book so that you don't use it to make the claim and to stand on the fact that when you look at the diaspora, who was spread out, who was destroyed, who was enslaved, that you don't come to understand how it applies to a number of you. But they've taken control, over that understanding. It's accepted and it's respected. And they're doing everything within their power to prevent us as a people from coming back to our heritage. I'm not talking about all of you, because I know there are all types of people, that are out here. These are those that understand that they are of the heritage, right? I'm not trying to argue with anyone that you still want to be indigenous and FBA or whatever it is, and black or whatever you enjoy yourself. But you'll never have any legal, lawful standing as it pertains to identifying the heritage of a people based on the records. But here, in this book, The Jewish Mystique, the Europeans, they understand this thing is respected, this thing is accepted. Let them argue about it all day long. We're going to keep moving and we're going to keep using it, and we're going to do what we do and find prominence. So they've taken someone else's heritage, someone else's writings, and they've used it to deceive the world. All right, let me go. It says, so those who survived in the diaspora never were enslaved. I got to stop right there. They said those who survived the diaspora never were enslaved. Well, I survived, but there's a point within history where my people were enslaved. So I'm not really certain where they're going, with respect to that narrative, but that's not all true. And oh, that's the other thing. Within this book and his writings, I find how they mix truth and falsehood, just like so, uniquely or strangely mixed, together to push their narrative and or to tell their story. But, let's take this and pick it apart and come to understand how, they are deceivers. Okay? It says they were denied the rights others had, and they were denied the rights others had and deprived. It says, but with all that, they were permitted to live in their own style. So, let me see if I want to finish that. So he said they were permitted to live in their own style. Well, historically, if you look at what transpired with, I'll use the terminology that they posed in the book here as he talked about the Negroes. If you look at what transpired with the Negroes, anytime we went about to establish communities and venues and systems, they always came, meaning the Europeans. Some of them disguised even as Jews and Jewish people, although they deny it. The Jews deny everything. The Jewish people, they deny everything. They ain't do nothing. Okay? They ain't have no hand in the Atlantic slave trade. They don't control the banking industry. They deny everything. Okay? But when we establish certain venues, certain community systems, what they do? They come in with their angry white mobs and they would burn down villages. They would terrorize the people. They would take the lives of the people. Didn't matter the age. They had no respect whether it was a newborn to the elderly. They were ruthless, but they deny it. It never happened. Okay? And we're reading from the Jewish Mystique. We're just going to do one page. So he says, where was I? Oh, he says, and again, unlike the Negroes, in the dispersal, Jews were able to form homogeneous communities bound together by their own history. So that goes back to what I said. See, they were able to do it, but when we did it, each and every time, it was interrupted. It was destroyed. And furthermore, if you're reading in the Bible, in the book, it tells you the true children of Israel would have the complication of not being able to rely on their history, on their heritage. But miraculously, these individuals, these people were able to rely on it against what the prophecy states. How the Bible says the people would be treated and how they would be destroyed until the time of the gathering and they would be put back into their rest. They would be given the land upon which they would thrive. But somehow, miraculously, they've overcome all of that. All right, so here he says, together by their own history, language, literature, and religion, and governed in the internal affairs by their own political, social, and religious leaders. So yes, that goes, to what I said as far as how when we sought to establish ourselves prophetically as it was written, we were taken down, it was destroyed, we were dispersed, and, always had to start all over again. We went through hell as a people and still are dealing with the effects of the oppression, being afflicted by, those that control and or run the United States to this very day. Okay? All right, so here he says, Negroes lacked all of these intangible but immensely important advantages. We lacked them, yep. And one of the reasons being because we couldn't get no peace. Anytime we came in and we started to build and set up structure, they would come in and they would tear it down. And again, scripture supports the fact that we would be destroyed and or infiltrated in that manner and or in that way. So here, it says they did not share a common language, religion, history, or culture. So for those of you that want to think you have a black culture, all this stuff is made up. It makes you feel good, right? But black doesn't exist anywhere through the annals of time. And for a number of you, you just have no idea, where your history begins, but they understand where it begins because they said the history in the Bible is accepted and respected. They latched onto it, and now they have you arguing and trying to say that it's not true, and you want to nullify everything that's written because you want to be FBA. You want to be Aboriginal Indigenous. You want to be something you just think you can just make up out of your head. But the kingdom of Israel, the people, more than the tribe of Judah, it's vast. And there are records that show the northern kingdom came to this part of the world long before the tribe of Judah may have been, or long before the tribe of Judah were brought here in the belly of the cargo slave ships. And now today they want to even deny that cargo slave ships existed. They want to deny the Atlantic slave trade ever happened. But these Europeans, these Europeans know it to be true, and they use all of this to their advantage. So you don't have a culture being black, you have an experience, and that experience is tied to the oppression because that's all we talk about. Those are the examples that we share within our oppression. Okay. And governed in internal affairs by their own political, social, and religious leaders. So the religious leaders, like your Jesse Jacksons, and, unfortunately, he was a sellout. I know the man has moved on, and I'm not certain what type of yeah, I'm not certain what's going to happen to him. It's to be shown, to be known. Don't matter. But he was a sellout. Okay. He says Negroes lacked all of those intangible, immensely important advantages. They did not share a common language, religion, history, or culture. It says they had no literature, no record of their own past, no laws, no leaders, and no community. So when you think about this, no records. The Bible supports the fact that the children of Israel being dispersed, they would lose their heritage. They wouldn't have the records. And this is what I'm talking about. Somehow, these Jewish converts, they miraculously have found it. They survived beyond what the prophecy states. So then it says you had no religion, meaning no heritage, no language, no history, no culture, no laws. And this is what we're focused on now, trying to get individuals to understand the importance of the system or the law of life, as we're pointing it out, bringing ourselves back to the law of life. See, the Europeans understand it, but they leave my people to squander and argue as if it's unnecessary. You can just believe in Jesus. Just say the name of Jesus and you're going to be all good, and keep living according to their policies, their procedures. Keep living under the standard of the law of death that they've put out, and it's going to be okay. But no, we need to come back to the standard of laws that are written according to our heritage. Now, if you don't see yourself as a part of this heritage, I ain't talking to you. Okay? So he says, tribes did have at least some of these common bonds. But enslavement destroyed the tribal unit, and the Negroes kept on the plantation could communicate with each other only in English. So, the Negroes at one time being a part of the tribe, they were able, to deal with some of the points of having the laws, the history, but during the enslavement, it destroyed all of that. And this is according to biblical prophecy. As he said, his people would be destroyed, or in captivity, they would be destroyed, being under the heathen. All right, let's see. So they could only communicate in English. Even their religion, meaning their heritage, because at that point in time, we didn't deal with no religion. If you say religion today, folks are stuck on Christianity, Catholicism, or even Judaism, okay? But during that time, we never lived according to any religion. It was our heritage. That is what they call religion today. Don't get it confused, though. Even their heritage, even their religion, their self-image, and their ambitions were those handed to them by their owners. You all don't really want to deal with that part, as when you talk about the concept of the Negro, how he was fashioned. He was made to be and or to act a certain way to serve the heathens, to serve the Europeans that positioned themselves to be in authority. And a number of these Europeans were of the converted Jews, the Jewish community, but they deny that part. They say, no, they didn't have nothing, to do with that. But there are records out there that talk and will speak about them having their hand, within funding certain events. But they deny everything. Right? You see, where was I? So it says, they are in a difficult situation, talking about the Negroes today. And you all, this was written in the 60s. Right? The book is called The Jewish Mystique, if you're wondering what I'm reading from. It says they are in a difficult situation of not being accepted by the only society they know of. Not being accepted by the only society they know of, wishing to reject it in retaliation, and of having no society of their own, no culture, no usable past to turn to. And then he says, listen to this, because this is what I'm telling you about all this FBA, indigenous, Aboriginal and African American and colored and all this stuff that's being made up. I'm telling you, they understand the importance of standing on your heritage while we run around trying to make up some sugar honey iced tea. But look, this was expressed in the 60s. He says, no culture, no usable past to turn to. And then he says, university studies and institutions cannot manufacture a history and a culture. So, although you want to run around and try to make believe this and make believe that, if you can't deal with substantive records to go along with what you're talking about, they come to understand what you're dealing with is just imaginary. But they pointed out the information in a book called the Bible is accepted and respected, while y'all run around and argue about it and try to tear it down versus understanding how it's leverage. But this is what they do. But I'm going to show you even more how they understand who this individual, who this people are that they call the Negro, how they're associated with the kingdom of Israel, how they're associated with the tribe of Judah. And here's the other thing. We loosely use the term Negro, but that term is so specific. Because Negro is one of those terms that applies specifically to a certain people. It doesn't apply to all people just because you're dark-skinned and or melanated. There are all kinds of dark-skinned and or melanated people out here. Don't make them Negro. It'll tell you if you're reading based on the progenitors, right? The Negro is distinct from a specific progenitor, not like the other dark-skinned and or melanated people. But y'all try to make Negro be any and everybody just because you're melanated. And it's not so. And I'm not going to get into that right now as far as breaking down the different progenitors. Talk about that, some other time. Thank you all for coming, into the live. And I'm going to finish this one page and we're going to be done, because yesterday I told you I was reading out of this book and that I'd come back and I share with you the page that I was reading from, which shows and or points out that these people are liars, that these people understand exactly what they're doing, talking about the Israelis and how the entire world know who the Negroes are, while the Negroes still run around and claim all these misnomers and nomenclatures outside of understanding how to stand within what's accepted and respected. So he says, all right, even the religion, where was I? Oh, he says, they are in a difficult situation of not being accepted by the only society they know of, wishing to reject it in retaliation, and having no society of their own, no culture, no usable past or history to turn to. He said the university studies and institutions cannot manufacture history and culture. Then he says, and the condition which surrounded their life in America from the beginning, okay, hindered the development of those values, ambitions, and aptitudes, which would have procured them a reasonable place in American society. So they understood by removing and or stripping all these things from us as a people, because we are still a people being governed by another people. And this is what I don't get. While they're stripping the privileges that they gave in the name of a civil right and a voting right, and all the other privileges that they allowed, they're stripping all these things away. Why people just won't say to hell with it? Leave them to their own business and let them govern their own. And we turn as a people, having the laws, having the history under what's accepted and respected, and we govern. I mean, we've done it for them. We've helped them to maintain their rule, their control, their superiority. But we lack the faith and or understanding that we can walk away from them and establish ourselves within reclaiming our autonomy right here in what you call America. We don't have to go back to Africa. So he says, in contrast to the Jews, were conditioned by their past to develop just those values, skills, ambitions, and talents which turned out to be more conducive to success in the industrial businesses and scholarly groups which dominate America. That's the part that I was talking about, where right here in the book, he explains they dominate certain industries. But if you brought that out today, talking about what they dominate, they say, oh no, we're just 1%. We don't, how can we do that? I mean, they're liars. But in the 60s, it was already understood that they were dominating within various industries. And from that point to now, they've expanded the umbrella of the things that they dominate. But again, they lie. They don't dominate nothing. All right. So then, and coming to the end, of this first page. So he says here, Negroes did not feel that a code of conduct prescribed by their heritage. Okay, the book says religion, but I'm pointing it out that it's a heritage. By their heritage would lead them to redemption independently of the wishes of the white majority. Okay, I got to stop right there. Because this is what we're still dealing with to this very day. I might need to read that again, because I don't know if you heard it. Negroes did not feel that a code of conduct prescribed by their heritage would lead them to redemption, independently of the wishes of the white majority. Y'all still dealing with that to this very day. That's why you're running around talking about give us our right to vote. And you want to be Democrat and you want to be Republican. They understood this in the 60s. And a number of you still ain't caught on. You say you woke. Y'all keep saying y'all woke. To my folk from the West Coast, East Coast, up north, down south, let's go. Y'all still sleep. But Negroes don't believe that they need to have a code of conduct. Y'all think y'all can do whatever the hell you want to do. Make it up out of your head. But we have to deal with what's accepted and what's respected. Understanding the annals of time. Honoring our mother and our fathers that our days can be long. Y'all don't get it. Some of you. A majority of you. And I'm not trying to talk as if I'm smarter than anybody. And all I'm trying to point out is we need to change and come to understand how to live according to the law of life. Oh, there's a link. There's a link on my page right there. If you go to the page right under where it says Saturday at 11 you go to that link. You click that link and it should take you to the kingdom of Israel. Right? You click that link and you can see the videos from Prophecy 2026. That takes you to the YouTube channel. This video will be posted up there if you missed anything and you want to go back and you want to catch it. It'll be there. So you all go and you subscribe, to that channel. Thank you all for coming into the live, right? Almost done with this one page. I'm only reading this one page. I'm reading out of the book called The Jewish Mystique. And I'm just looking to point out how they understand who we are. They won't, admit to it. They put in the Rosette Thesaurus of 1834 that the Negro was synonymous with the image of God. But if you try, to find it on the internet now, they tell you there's no evidence of it, but I got the book. And it used to be readily available on the internet, but they go and they scrub. I mean, they've created entities and organizations to scrub the internet and fix it so that it speaks to things that they wanted to speak to. Right? But let me go on, because I ain't really got to the part that I wanted to get to that tells you the Negro is the Jew. In the book that the converted Jews wrote, they deny being converted. They deny being Khazars. They deny, Hyrcanus and Maccabees. But it happened to somebody, but they say it wasn't them. The people it happened to don't know where they are, but it ain't them. So, he says, Negroes did not feel the need to have a code of conduct prescribed by their heritage would lead to redemption, independence, independently of the wishes of the white majority. He says they did not feel that their sufferings were chastisement imposed by a father, here it comes, you all, by a father who had been disobeyed, and that ultimately redemption would be on their studying and obeying his laws. I'm going to read it again for you, because that one part right there, they're telling you that the Negro is a part of the kingdom of Israel, that the Negro is that Jew, because in the book, the Israelites were punished because they did not obey the laws. And right here, this European convert is expressing the problem of the Negro is because they disobeyed the laws. I'm going to read it again. So, Negroes, was that the one? Okay. They did not feel that their suffering were a chastisement imposed by a father who had been disobeyed, and that ultimately redemption. So redemption in the writings, it's only for the Israelites. So they understand this Negro is that Israelite that they pretend to be. Chastisement imposed by a father who had been disobeyed, and ultimately redemption would depend on their studying and obeying his law. So the redemption is in studying and obeying his law. Now, you bring this out within Christianity, they tell you throw that law in the trash, because that was a religion they created to maintain and or continue within the European superiority. But right here, within the Jewish mystique, he's pointing out that the Negro is a part of that line who disobeyed, and for disobeying, they were destroyed. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't, I'm moving on. But the video will be posted on the YouTube channel. Like I said, the link, you can go to my page right under where it says Saturday at 11 a.m. and you click that link. It'll take you to the YouTube channel. You can watch all the other videos that you may have missed. You can subscribe to the channel, right? And I'll post this one as soon as I'm done. All right, so here, because we're coming to the last part, of this, and then I'm done. So they did not feel that their suffering was a chastisement imposed by a father that they had disobeyed, and ultimately redemption would depend on their studying and obeying his law. Okay? Unlike the Jews, they tend to feel that their fate depends on outside secular forces. This is a problem, because in the 60s, they already understood that our people were looking for an outside secular force to assist them within self-determination, having autonomy. It's still happening to this very day, as you're fighting, a number of you, clamoring to vote within their system that they can continue to rule over your ass. Rule over your children. You can't be successful without them. What the hell wrong? Oh, I know what's wrong. You haven't studied and positioned yourself to obey the laws. So I'm reading out of the book, The Jewish Mystique. As I told you yesterday, I would come back to it. So I'm on the last few sentences of this page, and then I'm going to be done for today. Okay? But let me read that one again. Unlike the Jews, they, being the Negroes, tended to feel that their fate depended on outside secular forces. We still to this day, a number of us do not feel that we can be successful without Europeans in our affairs. We have them tied to everything that we create and or do. And that's a problem. But it was written in the 60s. It was already diagnosed and understood, and it's still happening to this very day. The only issue is the cycle in, the cycle out. Same issue, just different faces now that are dealing with it. And these new faces, a number of them have no recollection of what transpired in the 60s. They have no recollection of records of antiquity. No one's dealing with substantive facts. You all think you can take all of this modern stuff and just make it whatever you want it to be. That's a mistake. But in here, he does express the issue is not understanding within your heritage, the culture, studying and obeying a law. That you can live by that separately from what anybody and everybody else is doing. But mind you, in times when we did maneuver to establish ourselves, what they do, they came in, they disrupted everything. But again, the book expressed, or the Bible talks about the people being destroyed, the people being oppressed, and the reason being we don't adhere to obeying the law. That's our strength. But y'all want to continue arguing and think you can go and get your munitions and, you got your arms, and you think that's going to bring you into salvation. You think that's the way you're going to bring the European down. You're not going to do it that way. That will go against any and everything that's written. You all can deny it and try it if you want to, but that'll be to your own demise. Our strength is in the law of righteousness. That's how we tear them down. They can't survive in the law of righteousness. They can't penetrate the law of life. What was given to us to live by according to the heritage, they can't survive in it. That's why they keep us from it. Because as long as we denounce our heritage and keep calling ourselves FBAs and indigenous this and, Negroes and keep coming up with all these colorful terms, they're laughing their ass off. They're just like, look at these foolish, look, somebody come look at this. So here, outside of secular forces, right? That's all. That's what's keeping us down. Outside of secular forces, he says on the behavior of the white majority. So we don't think we can be successful without the behavior of the white majority, or without the approval of the majority being white folks within this democracy. The democracy that they control. You'll never have any authority within their democracy. I don't care how much you vote. They never set the system up for anybody else to have control but them. That's why every time they run the numbers and it look like they're losing the edge, they readjust and do what they need to do to get those numbers right so that they can stay in the seat of the majority. This their stuff. I ain't mad at them for doing that. I'd be damned if you come in my house and take over. You just get out, go build your own house, go do your own thing. And that's what we need to do. Get out of their house. It was already expressed that the house is on fire from the standpoint of integration, but yet y'all want to keep sending our people into a house that's ablaze? That doesn't make sense. So the last line, the last sentence actually. So it says, thus they are led to pull and push the majority into helping them. We're always fighting for the help of white folks. And that if we can't have them in our affairs, in our business, and if we can't, if they don't give us the right to vote, oh, whoa, it's like we need to back up off of that. It was written in the 60s that this would be a part of our downfall. This would be a part of the downfall, that we cannot separate ourselves from the oppressor. Said, thus, they are led to pull or push that majority into helping them. You think about NAACP, Black Caucus, all of these institutions are upheld by Europeans. The Jewish people are definitely tied to the NAACP. I don't know if they're I don't know if they're going to deny that or not. I mean, hell, they lie and deny so much. But that organization being created, under the observation, of the Jewish people, it's only so that they can keep tabs. This is why to this day, it hadn't been effective. Because you all are dealing with civil rights. Civil rights. Ain't no power. Ain't no civil rights. Those are privileges that somebody gave you. How you going to fight and argue with something that they said, when I give it to you, if I come back for it, you got to give it back? Or I can just take it back. The power is in the unalienable right. Oh, they don't talk to you about that, though, do they? Or even how to navigate within that, though, do they? Because you all refuse, talking to my people, refuse to realize you need to be governed by a separate standard and or law. Continuing to refuse and deny, it just leads you to continue being afflicted and oppressed. Some of you say you're not oppressed. Y'all want to go out and vote? This is what I say. Put liberation on the ballot. Vote for liberation. Vote for self-determination. Vote to govern your own affairs. So, last sentence. Thus, they are led to pull or push the majority into helping them and into repairing the damage done. They said they ain't going to repair nothing. They ain't doing nothing for you. Says which further weakens their own initiative and independence. This was written in the 60s. The Jewish Mystique. They understand, Europeans understand, as long as we're tied to their teat and we're continuing to want to suck and drink from their breast, it weakens our ability to have self-determination and independence. Y'all fighting for civil rights when you can have independence. That don't make no damn sense. Y'all out here holding these discussions and arguing about who you voting for, red or blue, when they're laughing at your ass, they already understand this weakens your ability to have control. It further pushes you into being controlled. Y'all want to be controlled. You want to be controlled and act as if that's power. You want to be in their system of control and act as if you have power. But the only way you're going to have power is you have to separate from their system. You don't have to leave America. We have to separate from their system, similar to things that were done, in Oklahoma and some of the other power centers that we did, and they would come in and disrupt it. But we'd have to do that, and they'd all have to be governed according to the law of life. But y'all don't understand that, because for a number of us, we have not been taught these things. And y'all want to make up. And this is where they be laughing at us. Because y'all just want to be so colorful. You're so damn emotional. You just want to make up something outside of allowing yourself to be disciplined, submitting yourself to discipline. You're too good for discipline. You just want what you want, and you want to get it however you can get it. And for that reason, you don't have anything but symbolic victories, a symbolic freedom. And when they fall, you're going to fall. As they are failing, you're failing. When they receive the reward for being wicked, you're going to receive that same reward, because you don't have sense to separate yourself. As he said, come out of her, my people, that you receive none of her plagues. But the question is, are you his people? And I'll end with that right there. I want to thank you all for coming into the live and having this time with me. I may come back and read that, one more time. I might, I may not. Outside of that, it's going to be on the YouTube channel. You guys can go to the YouTube channel. You can find it. Go to my page, right under where it says Saturday. Okay, right here on TikTok, right under where it says Saturday. Click that link. It'll take you to the channel. You can watch the other videos for the Prophecy 2026 series. You can see what we talked about yesterday, right? Israel no more, Israel forever, explaining, who the true Israelites are and how you have those within the state of Israel, they're posturing, to be a people that they're not. But the true children of Israel are still out there. And for those of you that this doesn't apply to, don't matter, just keep it moving. Not everybody is a part of this heritage. I get it. But for those of you that understand you are part of this heritage, and furthermore, you can't consider yourself, as who they've classified as the Negro and not be a part of this heritage. Otherwise, again, you're just making up stuff. The Negro is specific as far as how they created that misnomer for who it applies to. It applies to that one that came out of the tribe of Judah. You can research it a little bit more. It does not apply to those that are considered African. It doesn't apply, to the others centered around, the tribes of Israel. But that one Negro was specific to those that came up out of the tribe of Judah. Anyway, and I can talk about that later, or I have talked about it, but I just want to thank you all for supporting the live, coming into the live, sharing the live, reposting the live. Hopefully you found this educational, stimulating. Hopefully you go to the YouTube channel, go to my page right under where it says Saturday, 11 o'clock, click the link, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Anything you missed, I'll post this video up there. You can share it with your family and friends. Until then, good night, good morning, wherever you are, you all be safe.